I would sleep in my singlet. I would have the gripper during class, like I just lived it. It consumed me. And I think it was kind of like an escape.
We can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestle, because if you wrestle, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling. I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
If I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if it gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Wrestling Changed My Life podcast. Host Ryan Warner here, bringing you today's episode. It's Friday in Chicago, which means it's Lou Malnati's for dinner. It's a beautiful day. I've been on the road all week doing interviews for our upcoming audio documentary, which we'll be releasing soon. But in the meantime, let's get to this episode with Aaron Steed, CEO of Meathead Movers, based out in the San Luis Obispo area in California, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And I say that gingerly because I'm in Chicago right now, so I'm gonna keep that on the low. But San Luis Obispo is gorgeous. Aaron, as I mentioned, created a company from scratch, and his kind of niche is that he only hires college student athletes. He was obviously a wrestler, and then now he's a key member in creating the Central Coast RTC, which is a beautiful facility and will be connected to the University of Cal Poly wrestling team. So if you want to help those guys out, go to centralcoastrtc.org. Fan of the week is a Chicago man, Nick Parisian, Hinsdale South High School graduate of 2018, a so-called wrestling nerd, which is my kind of people. Nick, thank you for the support, man. We appreciate it. As always, this podcast is presented by Spartan Combat. Joe DeSena, the CEO of Spartan Races, the obstacle course race company, is obsessed with wrestling, and he's pouring a lot of money into the Cornell RTC, into creating a wrestling clothing company, Spartan Combat, and he's also hosting a national tournament in Jacksonville, Florida at the end of May. I've heard a lot of people are going. If you want to register, go to SpartanCombat.com. That's it, folks. Let's get to the interview with CEO Aaron Steed. Aaron Steed, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Hey, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
It's great to have you. I love having some folks on from the business world as well, kind of weaving in, the different stories. So we'll talk some business on this one, but let's just get started with your journey into the sport. Where did it all start for you?
So wrestling's in my family, luckily. And basically I was, kind of like a little skater rat for a little while. And then there wasn't any wrestling until I got into high school. And then I didn't start until the summer going into my sophomore year. And I just immediately knew just how hard it was because I was getting whooped on by everybody. And I had a lot of energy and was, pretty aggressive, tenacious kid. And I just immediately fell in love with it and just couldn't get enough.
And you grew up in California, right?
Yes. Yeah. On the Central Coast at a city called San Luis Obispo.
The most beautiful city in the world.
It's amazing. Come on out. Yeah, it's great.
I used to live in San Francisco, and one time I went down to, that's a big wine country, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I drove down, spent a week in there. It was awesome. And so what was the wrestling culture like growing up there?
So we have Cal Poly here, which is a Division I program, but it was a little fragmented, but most of the high schools have wrestling programs. So it's not like a wrestling culture like it is in San Diego or the Central Valley where it's, or the Midwest or parts of the East Coast, but it's pretty strong, but not dominant here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's at that time where you created your company with your brother, which is pretty incredible. What was the genesis of that?
Basically, parents didn't give us any money, so we had to figure out a way to do it on our own, and I was highly motivated. When I was in high school, my goal in life was to wrestle for Iowa, and I needed to figure out something that worked around my school and athletics schedule. So I went to all my teammates' parents and said, look, if there's anything around the house that you don't want to do, let me know. We were 15 and 17 at the time, and just pay us whatever you think we're worth. But here's the caveat. We don't have a truck or a car. So you need to pick us up at our parents' house, drive us to your home, and we'll do whatever you need us to do. And then just pay us whatever you think we're worth. And that's what kind of kickstarted it all. People wanted us to help them move, and it worked out great.
And so you guys were doing, because now you run a company, for folks who don't know, we're a professional moving company, and your angle or your differentiation is that you're working with college student athletes. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
How did it kind of go from that to where you're at now?
Yeah. So, being a student athlete, a struggling student athlete, trying to make ends meet, trying to travel and do things, I needed to figure out a way where I could set my own schedule, where I can make good money. And if I could get paid to work out and be around my friends, then, hey, that's just a win-win. Moving does all of that. And what I also really liked about it is I got a lot of gratitude from my customers, because by just surely showing up and being pleasant and being interested in them and trying to do a good job, they told us from the get-go, this is the best moving experience I've ever had. A lot of typical moving companies kind of hire shady characters, bait and switch pricing tactics. Mm-hmm. And we don't do any of that. We try to do things right. So it was cool because, my brother and I were able to support ourselves, and we're able to support all of our, wrestling friends and a lot of football guys too. And then it was a kind of like a match for student athletes and for what our customers wanted. And, after doing it for about 6 months, a year, I was like, if there are student athletes and everywhere, and there's this need in other areas, why can't we expand and do this in other communities? And here we are 24 years later and, still doing it. So it's been a good run. That's
incredible. What was the big turning point early on where it went from something you did kind of on the side to when it was all in?
Yeah. I don't share this too much, but the real story is, the state of California shut off our phone lines. So what happened was we were just a student labor service doing jobs on the side. The client would rent the truck. We'd show up, customers pay us whatever they thought we were worth. And we didn't have any licenses or insurance or anything of that nature, just a student labor service. But we started becoming so popular, and so many of my friends started working for me. Within 3-4 years, I had 60 of my friends working for me, and our competition started taking notice. The big established moving companies in the area that have been around forever, and they teamed up and was able to petition the state of California to shut down my business and shut off our phone lines. And that was kind of the big wake-up call. So here we are, right before summer, which is our busy season. Our phone lines are turned off. The phone number in the phone book, and back then it was the phone book. There wasn't the internet. This was 1999, 2000. So my brother and I sat down, had a conversation, took 5 minutes, and we said, hey, what do we want to do? Should we just kind of go about our way and say, hey, this was great while it lasted, or not? And to be honest, I viewed it as a declaration of war. I was pissed because here's my competition basically waging war on us, taking away our livelihood. And it was not just me, but 60 of my friends and my brother. And on top of that, we were the ones who were doing a good job. We were growing because we were taking care of our customers and doing right by them. And it was reinforced by our customers how much they've been taken advantage of in the past by typical moving companies. So by that time, it sounds cheesy, but I kind of felt like a knight in shining armor. I'm on a crusade. Hey, you know what, we're gonna do whatever we can to get our license, become insured, get legit, and then we're going to try to beat out our competition and beat them at their own game. And then there's a story as to like how we did that, but it was kind of like a do or die situation. It's definitely like a fork in the road, and we chose the business, you know, and that's also when like I decided to drop out of college. So I kind of sacrificed my college wrestling career, but it was just too good of an opportunity to pass up. We had a lot of momentum, and there's a lot of energy behind like proving the moving companies that put us out of business wrong. So
big chip on your shoulder at that point, right?
Oh, for sure. I was pissed. I was super pissed.
So where were you when you found out like the initial news? Do you remember like where you were at?
Yeah, I was in my college apartment at the time, and I get a knock on the door, and you know, someone in a suit filed up, you know, served us with some papers, and they said, "Hey, your phone lines are turned off. You're not allowed to operate as a moving company until you get your licenses and insurances, and it will get legal if you continue to operate as a moving company." And I was just absolutely stunned. I think this was like in May.
You're how old at this time?
I was like 19 or 20.
Oh my! You must have been shaken to your core when you got that news.
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking because so many people were depending on us for work, and also our customers. And we had so many scheduled jobs, and everything went to the landline. There weren't like I didn't have a cell phone back then. They were just started. Cell phones were, you know, if you were a baller attorney in New York or something, those are the guys who had the cell phones. So yeah, it was definitely some adversity. It felt like a David versus Goliath situation. I didn't even know where to get started, but you know, one step at a way. And if it weren't for wrestling, I wouldn't have had the balls to step up, and the grit and the tenacity, and I wouldn't have felt so comfortable like fighting to win, you know. But it was a declaration of war is how we took it, and we had a lot of energy to do what we thought was right.
And how long from then to when you were back on? We talking a week or a month?
Almost a year.
Stop it. What?
Yeah, almost a year. So
did you lose all your customers?
Yeah, and so here's what happened. Year. So we got a new phone line, and I looked into it, and I believe in the saying, sometimes you got to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And basically what I did is I went to the local newspaper, and I explained to them what had happened, which I felt like it was a crime. And I was like, we're the good guys. Our competitors are the ones who are screwing over our competition, putting degenerates in clients' homes as a standard practice. We're clean-cut, drug-free, you know, student athletes who are trying to help and better themselves, who are moving furniture, and and our customers love us, which is why we're so popular and getting all these jobs and growing, which is why they're threatened. So look, I know legally we can't advertise as Meathead Movers, but would you be, and you can't advertise Meathead Movers, but what do you think of calling of being Meathead Helpers and get a new phone number, and then maybe hopefully the Meathead brand is strong enough where people seek out Meathead Helpers in the new number. And you know, after a gut check, the owner of the newspaper said, and took a couple of meetings to get to this point, but he said, yeah, I'm willing to go on this ride with you. And he was like, but if the state sends us a letter saying I can't advertise, you know, Meathead Helpers, then we just might need to revisit this. Okay, no problem. So, you know, we went from Meathead Movers to Meathead Helpers, got a new phone number. Still, the phone book, which only came out once a year, was still ringing to a disconnected line. But by that time, we had so much demand for our services that our customers were finding us, and we were able to like get enough business. And then 3-4 months after that, that phone line got turned off. So then we called.
By who? The state?
By the state again, because our competition turned us in again. So we, within an 8-month period, had to change our name 3 or 4 different times. We're the, the Strong Meatheads, and then we're the Meathead Loader and Packers. And it was like this game of cat and mouse. And then what we did is during this time period, we had to save up $25,000, which seemed impossible to collateralize the workers' comp policy. We had to study to pass the test to get the PUC license, Public Utilities Commission, which is what the permit moving companies used to need in order to operate. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness my brother is a much better test taker than me and smarter than me in many ways. And he was able to pass it at the age of 18, becoming the youngest licensed professional mover in state history at the time. And then we got the license from the PUC, even though the enforcement arm of the PUC kept shutting us down. And then once we got our permit, after like 8 months of this cat and mouse game, then it was on. We put 100% of our time, energy, and focus into building Meathead Movers and trying to change the industry while helping student athletes work their way through school. And that was our mission. And there was a lot of energy behind it because we know what it's like to try to make ends meet while accomplishing your athletic goals. It's hard to do it. And not everyone has a support system around them, right. and I didn't, so I get it. And I thought it was a very worthwhile cause.
It's crazy to me that the state was getting that involved in like private matters like that.
I know, man.
You guys were just yeah, it's true. It is California. Just a company, a couple of kids trying to make it happen. And through amazing odds, it does happen. And then they get involved like that. That's crazy. So go ahead.
Yeah. In one of the, like, if we were just doing it, I think it was because we became pretty successful pretty quick. Like we were doing a fair amount of jobs really quick because we developed a reputation. San Luis, this was a small, embracing community. I was a pretty well-known athlete at the time, mm-hmm. At the high school wrestling circuit, and it just kind of took off. So because we were viewed as a threat, our competitors invested some resources, and they joined together to do it too.
Did you ever lawyer up and take them in for anything?
No, not the ones who originally turned me in. And there was nothing really to take them on about, but what was so funny is it backfired on because it really energized us.
Yeah.
Because we felt like we were in the right, So
man, that is wild. And so that was an early obstacle.
Yeah.
Where did you get the idea of like, once you hit, I guess not where'd you get the idea, but once you hit that point, did you ever think about moving away from the model of athletes, or was that one of your core principles the whole time?
In our mission statement, it says our founding principles to support student athletes in pursuit of their own American dream.
Nice.
And that will never change. It's a big part of our why of what we do. I've almost lost the business 3 times from what seemed like insurmountable cash flow issues. The Great Recession, the workers' comp crisis, things that have happened over the years. Now, it hasn't always been an easy road where it's just been up. We've been knocked flat on our ass a few times where it was like, how the heck are we going to get out of this situation? And truly knowing and understanding what it's like to support yourself and how hard that can be, and how important schools and athletics are, and how much, especially like wrestling, like wrestlers really need wrestling. A lot of wrestlers, if they don't have wrestling, they can go down some dark roads, if they don't channel that energy right. And I understand that. And I take so much pride in being able to provide the best job we possibly can to the aspiring student athlete. And it's an important part of what we do,
It's awesome to see that you guys are investing that much into it. And also, how, I'm in sales, and a lot of sales companies look for student athletes because they know how to do time management and just the grittiness, obviously.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there's a couple times where you guys were almost flat broke. What was the most challenging of those 3, would you say?
Oh man, just looking yourself in the mirror and just like need to get back to work. There was a time in 2000, 2003, where the workers' comp crisis hit. And we were paying at one point like 10% of our labor payroll, all the way up to 80% of our labor payroll on workers' comp. It jumped like that overnight. So I went from feeling like a young, millionaire doing, just under 2 million a year to all of a sudden our workers' comp rates went from like 40, 50 grand a year to like $300,000 a year, and went up 4 or 5 times. And it knocked us straight on our butts. We had, I believe, 11 administrative employees. We had to lay off all but 2 of them. These guys were my best friends. We had to come up with 25% of our premium, like $75,000 for the year in order to be insured. Problem was, we only had like 30 in the bank and payroll that due that Friday. It was so hard, Ryan. I remember like going down to my expenses and personally calling every single expense, even the electricity company, Staples, like everyone who we spend money with, and explain to them, look, we're in a do or die situation. A lot of companies would be going out of business right now. My brother moved into the office. I moved back into my parents' house. We shared a car. We canceled the fresh water subscription, like the filtered water that in the jugs, that like we canceled that. And I explained, and I just remember like in our little conference room explaining to my employees the same thing I was explaining to the banks and all of my vendors, crying, explain to my best friends and the guys that helped me build this company when I have to lay them off. And I went from being an important, valuable person in their life to someone they hated, because they felt like I was leaving them behind and betraying them, and that they were dispensable, even though, and I remember not having anything to give. One person in particular who was very, very influential in the early stages, who really did not deserve to get fired. And I gave him one of our used pickup trucks because I felt so bad. He was a cow ply wrestler, great guy, Joe Hart. And, but if the mission is important enough, if it means enough to you, like you find a way. And the way workers' comp is, it's like 3 years where it was kind of a perfect storm, because we grew a lot and we had a lot of injuries. And then just the macro rates went up, the climate, it just went up. So,
did it ever reset, or is that the new normal moving forward?
No, it totally reset and went back down. And, one of the main reasons why Gray Davis got recalled as governor was because of how poorly the workers' comp crisis was managed. So that's when Schwarzenegger came in, and the first priority was to fix the workers' comp crisis, because so many businesses were closing, and frankly, if I had a family and like a mortgage at the time, I would have just filed bankruptcy and closed down shop. We couldn't hang. It was gnarly. But going through that experience, it made us look at how are we treating injuries in our company? What are things that we're doing to prevent injuries? And at the time it wasn't anything, because it was like, hey, you got to be strong to work here, and that's about it. And a lot of times get it done, and our employees' minds were stronger than their bodies. So we developed a system where we're like a lot more almost like perennial towards them. And like a sports team, we're proactive in trying to keep them healthy, and created incentives to be safe at work. And that works so well. But now we have really, really low claims, to the degree where we're actually a part owner in a self-insurance program, which we're a part of, which has been a huge part of us being able to grow and do the things we can, because we're effectively an owner of our own insurance company. And we wouldn't have been able to do that had we not gone through that difficult time and had a gun to our heads to figure out how to have a safer work environment, for our student athletes. But the pain associated with going through that process was just brutal. And it wasn't about money. My employees who were making $10 an hour at that time were making significantly more take home than what my brother and I were making for 3 years. For 3 years. Like, yeah, like we weren't ordering avocado and hamburgers. And don't get me wrong, like we didn't go homeless or anything. But you know, my brother had to move into the office, and I you know, I went back home for a bit. Like it was nuts.
Dang. It's just crazy the obstacles that you guys navigated though, and ultimately got stronger through it. I mean, what are some tips you would have for other people out there who are either just trying to get their career started or, you know, managing a business themselves, like how to get through some of these obstacles?
The best thing I think that prepared me for it, I swear, is wrestling. You know, in wrestling, you are just faced with the toughest of situations. And there's such a crossover to wrestling in life. Obviously, the famous Dan Gable quote, you know, once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. So true. And it's a different kind of it's a different kind of toughness. But if you are able to channel the what you know, as much of the lessons and the grittiness from wrestling into the business world, who's going to outwork you? You know, but I think you need to pair that grittiness with like purpose and passion. You need to really know and understand why what you're doing is important, and it needs to be more than just money. And if it was just money, like I wouldn't have been able to take the grittiness I learned from the great sport of wrestling, and because money's not, it's just not meaningful enough to me personally. But what I was willing to die on the hill for was helping the fellow student athlete, you know, work their way through school and college. And also I got a lot of affirmation from my customers for doing a good job, for creating the best moving experience. And and as a young man, I really needed that because I didn't get enough of that in the home I had growing up. So getting that positive,
How do you mean? Like growing up, you didn't have that?
Yeah, like I could have used more pats on the back and compliments and like been built up more, you know? So getting that from my customers, I craved it. Like them expressing gratitude to me just felt like so important. And then having the freedom and be able to like control my destiny and all the autonomy that goes along with having your own small business meant a lot to me. It wasn't like moving furniture that I was passionate about. Like, you know, moving boxes and humping refrigerators up and down stairs. Trust me, it's difficult work, and it's not, you know, and it's not glamorous, but all the stuff behind it, I was so passionate about, and I craved it so much and loved it so much. It was worth fighting for. And if you've wrestled, you have way more fight.
But the thing that sticks out to me is the reason you were doing it was important to you. Like you said, the why you were doing it was it. Man, that's so inspirational to hear about you. I've heard that you're a work ethic or a workaholic. What was your work ethic like during either the peak of your business or even now, if you guys are still going as hard as you were? I mean, are you talking like 4 a.m. type of thing, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I think I am much more balanced now. I hope I am. You know, I'm turning 41 on Friday, and I think I have a pretty decent balance. But I was manic obsessive for many years, about 16 years, where 7, you know, like 75 to 90 hour work weeks, all the time, nonstop, and just kind of chasing it. And I think, and I don't know if that's healthy. And I certainly don't recommend it, because parts of my personal life and my development in other ways, I think, suffered because I was so focused like on building a business. I was so intoxicated with growth and opportunity and achieving and trying to feel worthy that other parts of my life were neglected. And so I think there's a balance there, and you might see that like in some of the super elite athletes, they might not have room for other things and it bites them in the butt later on, and for me, like I put so much of my heart and soul and mind bandwidth into it. So I think over the years I've had some health issues that were definitely like stress related. I landed myself in the hospital with diverticulitis, had 8 inches of my lower intestine removed around Christmas time, 2018. And that's not a normal thing. And since that day, I said, I'm going to make my health like number one. I'm no longer going to just kill myself for my business. Not worth it. And that's when I decided, hey, I'm gonna get back into jujitsu because wrestling's too hard on my 41-year-old body. Every time I go into the room, Cal Poly room, I got injured like the last 5 or 6 times I went in there. But with jujitsu, I'm able to get a lot of that workout and channel like satisfy, quench my the same thing that wrestling did for me mentally and physically. So it is, I don't think there's like a specific blueprint as far as what to do, but I've always been like laser focused on a goal, whether it was like wrestling and then business, and things either got in the way of me accomplishing my goal or not. And I think that could be helpful and useful and powerful in spurts, but not for like many years in a row, but hey, you need to learn things the hard way too, right?
Yeah.
And I'm definitely one of it. So what the heck?
One thing about that is that, by doing that kind of work ethic though, you get to make up amazing amount of ground on people who aren't at that pace, so you were putting in, maybe you did it for, I think you said 14, 15 years, but man, if you multiply that out, that was like the equivalent of like 22 years of work that you jammed in there, or even 30 years of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
definitely. So in terms of your kind of turning point where you started focusing on health again, you're doing jujitsu. Are you doing any type of diet or health regimen that you follow?
Yeah. I played around with plant-based. That worked out great. When I was like detoxing off of meat, I felt like Superman for about 3 months. And then I started feeling super weak in the room,
Really?
And
but for those 3 months, you were feeling great though?
I was feeling great. But then month 4, 5, and 6, I started feeling kind of weak, So I then went back to red meats, and now I'm doing intermittent fasting, which is just easy, and just taking a balanced meal and trying to up my fluid intake, which is difficult because naturally I just kind of run dehydrated, so I'm trying to be real intentional about that, and then I take supplements.
And so when you're doing the intermittent fasting, at what time of the day do you start eating, and then do you stop?
Noon, and is when I start eating, and then I stop eating at 8.
Love it. Okay. I do something very similar.
Okay.
I'm 12 to, I guess 7, but a lot of times later than that. But for a year, I did it 7 p.m. to 9 a.m. And that was a big jump at the beginning, but once you got it figured out, you were good. And then this year I've been doing the noon to 7 p.m. is the eating window. And it is harder. And like every day about 10:30, I'm freaking starving, but
totally.
It's amazing how lean you feel and how light you feel if you don't eat a lot in the morning.
Yeah. And I really do believe it's how our bodies were designed to be. We I don't think humans were designed to be eating constantly all the time.
No.
It makes total sense. How long have you been doing that for, Ryan?
This full year. So each year I'll try to do something new. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. 4 months or so. Beginning of May. So about 4 months. And it makes things a lot easier. I still do coffee though. I know some people don't consider that, but I'll do coffee and water, but and then Saturday I'll do whatever. But it really makes a difference during the week.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
Totally.
I kind of do a similar like a keto kind of thing where I try to not eat carbs or sugars during the week and just do like meats, vegetables, potatoes. I know, red potatoes are technically not keto, but I'll sneak those in once in a while. But just keeping it simple really is probably the biggest thing I focus on.
Yeah. One of my, that's cool. Yeah. One of my good friends, and he was an All-American at Cal Poly. He says everything in moderation, even moderation.
Absolutely.
I just love that saying, it's like everything in moderation, even moderation. It's I don't know. It's okay. It's okay to have those cheat days every now and then.
Yeah. And I go absolutely wrestler post weigh-in on my cheat days. It is chaos over here. I'll go ice cream tub, pizza, whatever it takes, man.
Totally. It's so many wrestlers, and me included. I'm 5'11". I was weighing 260 at one point. Like, we need to be talking more about our diet and our health and nutrition after we compete. So many of us have eating disorders because it's feast or famine. And then when you're not having to make weight, like, that's such a relief. It's, I just gorged myself for so many years, and so many of us just like blow up. It's hard to, and it's hard to fight your way back as you get older too.
And I don't know why it is. It's disproportionately 103 pounders. I don't know why. Like, I know more people who I used to wrestle with at 103 who are like 210 now. And I'm like,
yeah,
what in the hell is that you?
It's like you ate you.
Right. So, kind of the underlying foundation for you throughout a lot of your success in life has been wrestling. And you mentioned that your goal was to go to Iowa. So I got to imagine Dan Gable must have been like an idol to you. Who were some of your mentors as a kid who got you going?
Yeah. I watched that like Competitor Supreme video probably 500 times, no, maybe 700 times, just crazy. I like wore out the tape on my VHS. I'm dating myself, but that's what I watched. That was the VHS. I watched the USA Wrestling magazine, would read that, all the time. And then really my high school wrestling coach, Rob Nieto, was a really special guy. He kind of put me under his wing. We had a really special bond, and I looked up to him a lot. He cared about me, and I did anything he told me to say. I wanted to be a state champion, and I had a late start. My first year competing collegiate was my sophomore year, and I wanted to be a state champion in California. Mm-hmm. And it was, and like, I would sleep in my singlet. I would have the gripper during class, like I just lived it. It consumed me. And I think it was kind of like an escape for me too. It was a dimension I wanted to like just live in 24 hours a day. So my coaches, Rob Nieto, the freestyle Greco program was led by Joe Dansby, who's the Cuesta College coach now, still a very good friend of mine. Really looked up to him. And then also the Cal Poly athletes, we're so blessed to have a D1 program in our small community, mm-hmm. and to watch the practices, go to the dual meets, and just kind of rub shoulders with guys who are great athletes and have all accomplished the things that I was hoping to accomplish at the time. For me, it was just incredibly motivating.
Yeah. I mean, to have D1 guys that close, I mean, they must've been larger than life as a youngster.
That was incredible. Yeah. It was absolutely incredible. And I was blessed to like have that clarity and those examples of, what some of the heroes in my sport were. Cause, there are very few state placers from the Central Coast of California. Most of them come from the Central Valley or the San Diego, Temecula area. So yeah, anyways. Yeah,
to have awesome. Those guys around. Yeah. Huge. Well,
for sure.
One of the things we always ask people as we wind down is, how did wrestling impact your life? I mean, what are some of the biggest lessons you've taken away from it that you still use today?
Oh my goodness. I would say my reference on what's difficult and hard is, I have a, high bandwidth, a high work ethic because, so, you know, definitely that. And then also, I know I've heard this on your show, but like, even though wrestling is an individual sport, the camaraderie and the brotherhood that's developed is just absolutely second to none. And then if there's time, Ryan, I'd love to talk a little bit about the regional training center too, if that fits into your agenda.
Let's hit it. Yes.
Okay, cool. So, you know, if you go to my Instagram, Aaron Steed, you'll be able to see all kinds of links on the Central Coast Regional Training Center. It's a joint effort between me and Cal Poly Wrestling. We got sanctioned to become an official regional training center for USA Wrestling. And we're trying to raise money and donations, trying to raise $15,000 a month reoccurring for 3 years, which will pay for the center. And it's going to be a youth wrestling, and it's going to support high school and junior high wrestlers, and also to be coached by the Cal Poly and the Questa wrestlers, as well as the Olympic hopefuls and guys on the Olympic ladder that will be able to, you know, come here and train. So, you know, it's a big effort. It's ambitious because this isn't like being funded by one or two people like most RTCs are. We're looking for this to be like a community type thing, but also if anyone is just a wrestling enthusiast, you can go to the website, which is Central Coast RTC, or you can check it out on my page. There's links to it, and you can like donate to it, or you can sponsor it, have your banner and logo up on our thing. And we're, you know, just really hoping to try to bridge the whole, the fragmented wrestling community in San Luis Obispo County, and also just with like Fresno and Stanford programs. Hopefully Stanford comes back, but you know, give California another RTC, the West Coast another RTC, and it's badass. It's 6,000 square feet, 45-foot ceilings. It used to be a climbing gym.
This is a facility. Facility. Wow.
A standalone facility, a regional training center.
And is it going now, or it will be opening at some time?
We're fundraising for it now, and then opening date is going to be August 1st.
Wow, that is fantastic. How did this all start?
Me and Coach John Cerritos talking about it, and then ultimately us deciding, hey, now's the time to do it because commercial real estate is cheap. So we tied it up, and Coach Cerritos is doing an incredible job at Cal Poly. Has so much momentum. Bernie Truax took fourth. You know, legend sophomore, Legend Lammer went 2-2 at the show. Redshirt freshman, like just incredible. And he has an incredible system and a lot of buy-in. So the local high school coaches, Coach Cerritos is such a good leader. People are just like wanting to be around him and gravitate towards him. And Cal Poly is on definitely an upward trajectory. So we figured this would be and we have the administration support too at Cal Poly. So let's go ahead and do it. And and then this funding model of it being like a membership for the local youth wrestlers. We got the high school coaches engaged. We created founding members, and it's a model like this hasn't been done to our experience, but we're hoping that it really taps into something special. And then after a couple years of doing this, we can see the overwhelming support and interest for the sport of wrestling. And we have Lee Kemp and John Azevedo, Luna Wick, all agreed to be coaches, you know?
Wow.
And which is just amazing and a great opportunity. And we're hoping that after we launch it, that there's enough support where we can maybe like buy a piece of dirt, put up our own facility, and make it even more permanent. But this is like the first step to having that. And as you know, like most top 20 programs have an RTC, and Cal Poly wants to be right up there. So we need to figure out how to do it. And this is our strategy, since no one's willing to write the check. So hopefully we get a lot of little donations and make it happen. It's a huge effort. It's really cool.
And is it the recurring revenue model something where the participants, they could subscribe and that's part of the access to the gym. That kind of a model.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So our members can we're asking them to pre-register now.
Mm-hmm.
And then and it's $100, or you can sponsor the facility. And then starting next month, we're going to do a Kickstarter campaign. And then we're also going to start hitting up business sponsorships. And we're going to be operating under the umbrella of Titan Mercury Wrestling Club.
Cool. Man, that is fantastic. I'll have to come out and see the facility. And
oh, that'd be awesome. We'd love to have you out, Ryan.
Oh my God, I would love to do that.
We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you.
Thank you. We will. I will connect with you offline about that, because that would be any excuse to go to Cal Poly is always welcome. And so it's centralcoastrtc.com or .org.
Yeah, .org. Yeah.
.org. Okay, man. Wrestling fans, let's get out there and support this. This is fantastic.
Awesome.
I love to hear about it. Anything else that we're missing out on here in the Midwest? Because Californians know how to do it with wrestling.
Oh, that's awesome. As does the Midwest. I just want to say thank you to you and your podcast. Thank you for shining a light on the sport of wrestling and just all the great content that you're putting out there. And I think we all need to figure out if you've gotten something from wrestling, if it's changed you in some way. I think it's important to figure out a way to give back, just as you're demonstrating with your life, Ryan. Mm-hmm. And we all got to do that to keep the sport alive, because if we don't, no one else will. And, it was only 10 years ago, we almost got booted out of the Olympics. Right. So
that's wild.
Right. Yeah. So we have to kind of pay our debts if we've benefited. And I think that's that. And I certainly feel indebted, which is why, I want to be a part of trying to help put this RTC together. And you can give back, whether it's just donating your time or donating a little bit of money or sponsoring a kid to a wrestling tournament. Just talk to your local coaches, check out USA Wrestling, and figure out some sort of match. But a lot of sports have their alumni athletes and coaches who are a lot more passionate about giving back to their sport. And I feel like there's room in the wrestling community where we can all dig a little bit deeper with our pocketbooks and with our intention and with our time to give back. We shouldn't just rely on the same old people to do it. We all can do a little bit more in our own way, whether it's like with a podcast or whatever. There's a bunch of ways you can give back to the sport of wrestling.
Or even going to college dual meets. You don't see that much fans watching college duels. Totally. It's gosh, that pains me to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate the kind words, and whatever we can do to help what you guys are doing, count us in.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Likewise.
Thank you, my brother. Great having you on. Right. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
And that's the end of this episode of Wrestling Changed My Life. Thank you so much for tuning in. To watch the full video interview, go to YouTube, Wrestling Changed My Life. And that's it. We'll see you next time.